I'm from Shoreview and the Take Action leader on the Senate District 53 team and the co-chair of the reNEW Minnesota African American Table. For me, Senator Bakk, the reNEW Minnesota vision is at the core of all of the work that I do in the race for government, my community activism, even my connection when helping to bring my perspective on the national agenda to the minds of the ears of our elected officials. The reNEW Minnesota vision is very encompassing. It demands a change in direction for our state. It is truly a different path to be explored. The reNEW vision calls out for restructuring of who holds power in this state, the role of government in our lives, and the essence of democracy. I know the vision for Minnesota will not be achieved overnight and could take years to accomplish, but we need to make bold changes immediately if we are to get started down a new path. I plan to be around, Senator Bakk, to hold the next governor's speak to our vision. When and if you are elected governor, you will be assuming leadership from an individual who has little regard for any progressive thinking. What will you do to make sure you keep your eye on the reNEW vision, our shared vision, and not be derailed by the mess at hand? Plainly put, you are walking into a state where no easy solutions exist. So how do you prioritize and not park the reNEW bus?
This is tough medicine. Okay? We have, well, let me just say first, it's about surrounding yourself with the right. It's about picking the right commissioners that share the vision, that then communicate that to all the lower level bureaucrats. But I appreciate your comment about everyone's going to have to share and this is going to be tough. Let me just tell you what I think you need to think about. What I am really worried about. Last year I supported in the Senate the idea that we should do across-the-board cuts. And I think the Senate was right. I think the Senate was right. And the Senate actually balanced the budget. We did that big tax bill, but then we did some serious cuts across the board on everything to get the state's budget in balance. And the Senate balanced the budget in the current biennium and in the next. And we didn't have a school shift. You know, every month now when the state sends money out to school districts, we're withholding 27% of the money we owe them. You know where that came from? The EFL controlled house. That's where it came from. Truth. Okay? Because they didn't have the courage to raise income taxes or to make cuts. Here's my fear going forward as maybe the chief executive of the state, knowing that we have a $5.4 billion deficit in the next biennium. And you know, all of us elected officials have a constitutional responsibility to balance the budget. And the question is, how do we then prioritize the spending so that reflects the vision? And here is my thought. And this is very controversial. But I sat down with Senator Cohn and Senator Poggenmiller right after the budget forecast came out. And I said, you know, there's one tax committee that has to raise the money. There are 10 spending committees that spend. What I suggested to, so I'm outnumbered, right? So I don't go to their meetings. What I suggested to Senator Cohn is sit down with your 10 spending chairs and have them put on a sheet of paper, rank the issue of priority, all the things they spend money on. And what I'm worried about is if we just continue to go down this road of across-the-board cuts on everything, knowing that we have a deep structural budget problem that's going to take us several bienniums to get out of. What I'm worried about is 5 or 6 years from now, we're going to look back and we're not going to do anything very well. Not even the things that are the most important to us. And many of those are in the reNEW mission. So what I suggested is, sit those 10 chairs down and let's figure out what the most important things are in each one of those committees and let's do them well. And then let's spend the money, and you know what? We're going to get to a point where we run out. This governor's not going to give us any revenue. But you know what? We can't continue to do everything. So some things below the line, we're not going to do any longer. I'm going to say it again. This is a deep problem that's going to take a number of bienniums to correct. And I don't want to 5 or 6 years from now look back and say, if everything's mediocrity, even the things that are the most important, we don't do well any longer. And many of those things that are most important are in the reNEW vision. And I think we got to commit to them and do them well. And unfortunately, the result of that is there are some things that are nice to do that we're not going to be able to do if we're going to do the things that are important well.
So as a follow-up to that, you mentioned earlier on tough medicine, and you talked about raising income taxes and making cuts. But that's not the tough medicine, I think, that you're specifically talking about with your end of your answer. You talked about prioritizing and putting a list, and essentially you've run out. And you referred to the reNEW Minnesota vision, which is quite broad and inclusive, as you recall. So what would your list start with, and what links all of that new vision together in your mind?
Well, you know,
That should be the priority.
it's not one of the 10 committees is more important than the other. It's in each committee there's a silo of things. And each one of those chairs, I think, needs to determine what the most important things under their jurisdiction are.
What would be your priorities?
I think the most important challenge that we face is, for a number of decades, Minnesota has been growing personal income kind of in a top tier of states. Minnesota has done really well. You know, we have 19 Fortune 500 companies. That is more per capita than any state in the country. We've done pretty well. Our per capita income for households is some of the highest in the country. It used to be second. We're now down to 8th in the country, but we've done pretty well. My biggest concern is that as Minnesota, there's a whole lot of us that are my age in this state that are going to go out into retirement. And my biggest concern is, are Minnesota businesses going to be able to access the qualified people they need to continue to grow here and add jobs in this state? And I would argue that if we're going to do that, and we're going to provide for opportunity for this next generation of people, Minnesota businesses have several competitive disadvantages. We're a cold weather state. It's not helpful. Okay? We have transportation obstacles. We're way up in the upper Midwest. That's not helpful. We're a high tax state. It's not helpful to business growth. But Minnesota businesses have had one competitive advantage that other states haven't had. We have had an incredibly productive, creative, innovative workforce. And it's because we have invested a lot of money in education. And if we fall down on early childhood and K-12 and on higher ed, the Minnesota business community is not going to continue to grow. And the Medtronics of Minnesota, when their next expansion comes along, if they can't find the qualified workers in Minnesota that have the skills they need, they're going to expand someplace else. That's our biggest challenge, I think, preparing the workforce so that we continue to grow opportunity.
We have one last set question, and then I know we have 2 others from